I want to talk about mortality credits. I looked for a good YouTube on the topic, but all I could really find were some cheesy sales presentations by insurance brokers on the topic. So I'm going to discuss just what mortality credits are and why they're so important for both annuities and especially for retirees. So let me tell you a little story. Recently, I got together with 25 of my geezer friends. Okay, we all played rugby together. We like to golf. We're all 65-year-old males. And we were talking about the problem. What's going to happen over time? So we all have these pools of money that we have to be able to go out and play, have a little beer afterwards. Our concern is that we're going to run out of the money, at least this particular pot of money, by the time we're 80. So what we all decided to do was to chip in $10,000 apiece. We were going to put that money aside. One of the guys said, "Oh, I'll put it in my Roth. That way we don't have to pay any taxes on it. I want to make it simple." And we wouldn't touch it for 15 years since we all have enough money to make it to 80. At that point, then, whatever the balance is was going to be distributed to the survivors, and then they could use it for their play money for the rest of their lives. So that's what we did. We put it in, and we wanted to make it pretty safe, so we put it into government bonds at a 3.15% interest rate. And over 15 years, that pool was then worth over $400,000. So if you look at the actuarial tables now, for a 65-year-old male to turn 80, 62% will hit that age. Okay, so that means that 15 out of the 25 are still going to be around. Wood. Okay, so each of the 15 would then receive $26,670. That would be a 6.76% return versus the original 3.15% rate of return that each of us could have had with our $10,000. Okay, now this is like a tontine. In a tontine, everybody pools their money. They all get a portion of the interest. As people die off, then that interest pool gets allocated to the survivors, and then the last person standing would get the principal. The problem of both of these examples, of course, is you have to be alive in order to collect. But if you think about it, why aren't I really very worried about the principal? Well, we're really focused on the retiree's problem again. And that's to ensure that there's enough cash flow to ensure that all of the spending needs are met through retirement. So this is an issue, again, of matching all of your floor needs, the things that you absolutely want to have cash for. The problem is then that you have these illiquid assets. Well, they don't really help. They're great for saying my total wealth is worth X, but if it doesn't turn into cash, it isn't fungible, then it's not very useful. The other problem is for individuals, we never really know how long we're going to live. So we could try to invest for 20 years, 30 years. What happens if some miracle cure for cancer comes along and we all live 40 years? We're still going to run out of money. So we need a way to cover cash flow needs when our age exceeds our planned asset life. And insurance companies have come up with just this very thing. Now, you've already read about lifetime income annuities. These are annuities that will pay out some cash flow for all of your life. Okay. Now, the payouts, um, the payouts can't really be called interest. So what we have to call them is payout. The reason you can't call them interest is because they are some portion of it is also going to be a return of principal. So let's stick to the word payout. Now the payout for a SPIA, a single premium income annuity, is 6.3% annually. This was as of today. Okay. So if I pay in $100,000, then I will get back on an annual basis until I die $6,300 each year. If instead a QLAC, I use a QLAC, which says that at 65, I will pay $100,000. And then at 85, I'm going to wait for 20 years. I start collecting. At that point, then I would be receiving a much higher return. I'd be getting roughly about $33,500 every year until I die. Now, that's a pretty hefty return that you get from both of these. But again, there is a big chunk of these payouts that rely on the fact that the insurance companies know that a certain percentage of people who invest in the product is going to be dying at some point. Okay? Now, let's compare that with a bond yield. I could buy investment grade bonds and get maybe for a 15-year bond, get a return of 4.5%. Or I could be buying a 10-year treasury. They don't have 15-year treasury bonds and get 2.9%. You can see that there would be a big gap in the amount of income that I would get. And that's exactly what mortality credits do, is they cover that difference. The mortality credit is the excess return of a fixed annuity, whether it be a SPIA or a deferred income annuity, which you would use in a taxable account, or a qualified annuity versus bonds of similar yields, time horizons, and quality. So if we wanted to look at an IRR of a bond, you could calculate it pretty easily. You would just take all the cash flows, the cash flow out to buy the bond, you would sum up all the cash flows that you would get back from the bond and the return of principal. It doesn't make a difference if you're dead or alive. But with a lifetime annuity, it's a different sort of issue. It's a function of survival. So if we assume that we have a SPIA, and typically annuities will have a 2% charge up front. Now, there's no more charges after that, but that $100,000 SPIA really would cost you $102,000. And let's assume that we have this 6.5, or really it's a 6.52% payout. Then you'll end up breaking even at 80. In other words, what's happened is up to age 80, what you've been getting is nothing more than a return of your principal and some interest. At 85, now you get an internal rate of return of 2.8%. If you live till 90, now if you look back, your internal rate of return would be 4.2%. At 100, it would be 5.4%. And eventually it would top out at about that 6.5% payout if you live to be 120 years old, which would not really be very pretty. But you get this idea that, we've got IRRs, and they're a little bit different, okay, than when you're looking at total return investment vehicles. Remember, these are insurance products. So why can't I replicate this with a bond ladder? Because after all, this is what the insurance company is really doing, is they're investing in a bond ladder in essence. So I should be able to do that. Well, let's say that I have a goal of $40,000 for the rest of my life, and I have $1 million available to fund this. So again, if I have that SPIA, for every $1,000 of an annuity that I buy, I can get $65.20. So if I need $40,000 each year, I divide it by my payout per $1,000. That means I would have to invest $613,000 in an annuity to get that $40,000 lifetime guarantee. So if I take out the 2% charge up front, that means I have $375,000 available for a riskier investment to cover the fact that my payout, my SPIA payout, is going to be flat at $40,000, inflation is going to occur. So I can buy a riskier investment, let time work for me in the meantime, and then start to draw on the returns of those riskier investments down the road quite a ways. Okay, so that's what I would do with an annuity. With a bond ladder, however, if I wanted to use government bonds, and say I was going to buy strips. So with a strip, what I would do is you find a 20-year government bond, and you just buy it for year 20, or you buy for year 19 or 18. You covered that in your investments course. So if I bought this series of strips that would pay me $40,000 a year using government bonds, safety, it's going to cost me over $1 million to be able to cover me for just 30 years. Okay? If I wanted to use corporate bonds, then it would cost much less because the yield on corporates is going to be higher. The problem is I face much greater default risk. And more importantly, good luck finding 15 to 30-year corporates. This is not a very good thing to do. The difference is that an insurance company does this for a living. These are people who are managing bond portfolios, so they know how to fill in all of the gaps. Individuals don't know how to do that very well. The other thing that the insurance product does is that they rely on the law of large numbers. Again, the insurance company is going to take a look and say, okay, I've got 100,000 people all buying this particular annuity. I know how many people are going to die from year to year to year. So what they can do is pull out a piece of that, the money that would have gone to the people who are now deceased, and they can reallocate that back out to the surviving annuitants, thereby raising that payout, the mortality credit, while at the same time still covering their costs and making a bit of profit. This is, after all, a business. So, bond ladder, you try to go for those cash flows. You're going to have to take much greater risk. You're not going to have as much left over for that risky investment. Leave it to the insurance company. They know how to do this part of it much better when you're thinking about income. So I've mentioned before about a SPIA that, or with any income annuity, they're going to pay out a portion of interest, that's the blue, and then principal. So initially, most of the payout that you would get up front would be just a return of your principal and a little bit of interest. But as you see over time, the bond component starts to run out. I mean, I'm paying these things out for 25 years, and if I pay out that $6,500 in 25 years, I'm going to consume all $1,000, but I'm still going to have the payout. And that's where the mortality credits come in. They keep getting to be more and more of a percentage of the total payout. That's what makes it all work. So I want to get my principal back. Again, the focus of this whole exercise of retirement income planning is to focus on cash flow to fund your floor spending needs. Okay? We're not looking for total return. We're just looking for cash flow returns. If you buy an annuity with refund options, then you're going to have much lower payouts. It just reflects fewer dollars left for the survivors, the mortality credits. And you want to really utilize maximum mortality credits if you're going to use an annuity. Again, they're insurance products. They're similar to a pension plan. That's all they're doing is replacing the pension plan. And when you die, the pension stops, just like with a life income annuity. If you want legacy needs, you should meet those using that higher risk investment where time then can offset the risks. So I think I've given you pretty much all you need to know about mortality credits. But if you want a little more insights, here's a couple of short YouTube videos by David Blanchett and Wade Pfau, two of the academics that you've been reading articles by for this course that you can watch.